One of the things I think every investor should do is spend a fair amount of time studying the people who have done really well in the market. What are they buying? What are they selling? What are they saying in interviews? And one of the people that I have come to respect the most is David Tepper, who is a hedge fund manager, has about $6 billion worth of assets under management. He has just a way of looking at the broad market and the major trends that are going on in industries, whether that's the banking recovery after the great financial crisis or the recent move into artificial intelligence. He's able to find ways to invest into these places with a diverse number of stocks and oftentimes come out ahead. And he's in these stocks before the market realizes there's a lot of potential. And then oftentimes he's out by the time any sort of bubble bursts. That's what I had in mind this quarter when I was looking at Appaloosa's positions, buys and sells, because I think that's what's really telling about the market right now. Is a lot of the big investors that got into companies like Microsoft and NVIDIA early on are now starting to get out. Something that investors should take note of right now. So let's go through a few of those positions today. My name's Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video's sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. So I'm just going to show a look at the portfolio overall. And you can see that the biggest position is actually Meta, followed by Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, and Uber. All of these companies are stocks that have done really well over the last year. A few of them are riding this artificial intelligence wave. But what I think is really telling is what's happened over the last few months. This is a table showing how these positions have changed over the last 3 months. So this is a quarterly filing, and the date that these are as of is the end of Q4 2023. So these are due about 45 days after, so filed mid-February. So there is a lag between when these are reported and when these transactions would have actually happened. It's very possible that Tepper was selling more NVIDIA or buying more Alibaba or reversing those positions. We don't know exactly what's happened over about the last 2 months, but between the end of September and the end of December, Tepper was selling a significant amount of shares of NVIDIA, selling a significant amount of shares of Uber, sold a little bit of Meta, and sold Alphabet and AMD. So what do all of those stocks that he's selling, the top 5 stocks that he's selling right now, have in common? Well, they had major tailwinds from artificial intelligence. And I think that is the really telling piece of this. The one I want to highlight the most is NVIDIA, because I think this is the most fascinating stock in the market right now. Obviously, a lot of investors are very bullish on it, but it's got an extremely expensive price to sales multiples in excess of 30. Yes, it is a very high growth company, but typically this doesn't work well. And I did a video previously about how Stanley Druckenmiller, who also has a pretty sizable position in NVIDIA, said that AI and NVIDIA in particular were in bubble. He called the stock being in nosebleed territory. So Tepper saw the potential growth for NVIDIA in early 2023, bought a big position, and now is starting to pare that back. So we don't know exactly what he's thinking, but it's very possible that he's seeing the valuation and the rise in the stock price as going a little bit too far. So starting to pare that back. He is willing to sell when he sees that these things are going too high. I think AMD is another interesting one because AMD is a brand new position as of the second quarter of 2023. So this is not a stock that he's held for a very long time. He's already starting to pare that back. So down from 4.88% of the portfolio. So that could be telling about what he thinks about the future of that company or the valuation of that company. Alphabet, we see a much longer history of owning at least some shares of the stock, but obviously in 2022 purchased a much larger position, almost 2 million shares worth of stock. That was increased in 2023 to 2.75 million shares of stock. And now that's started to come down, started to pare that position a little bit. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. I think some of the purchases that Tepper has made recently are equally as telling. Increased the stake in Microsoft just a bit, increased the stake in Amazon a bit. Those are obviously two bigger companies. Cloud providers have a lot of tailwinds from artificial intelligence, from improved economy. There's a lot of ways that those companies can grow. Also, a big increase in the stake in Alibaba, now the 5th largest position now the sixth largest position in Tepper's portfolio. Alibaba is one of these stocks that I think has really gone into value territory. So this is an investor that is known for buying stocks that are very beaten up. Look at the large position in Meta Platforms, or when he was buying NVIDIA even, willing to take a contrarian view on the buy side and then sell when there's really large gains to be had. The other two big acquisitions in the quarter were Oracle and the ARK Innovation ETF, ARKK. So two really interesting plays there by Tepper to get a little bit more exposure to a lot of these stocks, but maybe take a little bit lower risk approach. A couple of other trades that really caught my eye were a 50% increase in the stake in Caesars Entertainment. I have talked on this channel a lot about MGM Resorts, but that's another company that's playing very similar trends. They just don't have exposure to the Asian market in the way that MGM Resorts does, but great exposure to Las Vegas and the recovery in the Las Vegas Strip, growth in gaming there, and the operating leverage that those casino companies have. So that's a really interesting one, much more of a value play than a lot of these growth plays in semiconductors or in technology. Also bought a little bit more than a 1% position in UPS. Again, another older, maybe slower growth company, but one of those businesses that we're going to see increasing demand for delivery services long term. And so probably sees an opportunity to buy that stock at a bit of a value in the market. So like I said, with Tepper's portfolio in particular, what I'm looking at is not necessarily what he's doing with each individual stock, but what are the trends that we can see across the portfolio? This is somebody who had major positions in banking stocks in 2010, 2011, and we don't see any of those positions today. We're seeing a lot of technology companies, we're seeing a little bit more retail or entertainment companies. So he's able to play different segments of the market and try to ride the macro trends that are happening in the market. That's why I think it's notable that he's selling some of the major positions that he had in some of the bigger technology companies that were built even just over the last year or two. This could be because of valuation. A lot of the valuations of these companies have gone from being extremely cheap a year or so ago, you can think about Meta and NVIDIA in that category, to potentially very overvalued. And I think you could make an argument that any of those technology companies are overvalued depending on what metrics you're looking at. But his actions tell us that that's exactly what he's looking at and looking for a few more values in the market like Alibaba, like Caesars Entertainment. So investors shouldn't necessarily follow all of these trends, but it is worth keeping an eye on some investors who have had success over the long term in the market and see what they are thinking about stocks. Pair that up with what you're thinking, because a lot can change in the market and we need to be adapting to what's going on. I'll be back with a few more videos like this from other investors that I think are really interesting to follow and see what they're thinking about the market. But Tepper seems to be cooling on some of the semiconductor and tech stocks right now. What do you think about those stocks? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.